Hello, Zeteo here. Today I'm going to be taking a look at a replay that was submitted to the Academy chats. We're taking a look at SirupyKoala playing Air as our teal player. Let's jump in. We're going to take it a little bit slower on this one. There's certainly a lot of things in the early game I want to talk about. Let's see. All right, so starting off here, just looking at your queue. Let me go to your view real quick. All right, so your queue is showing 3 wind turbines after your 3rd mechs. So if you're doing 3 mexes, solar is, generally you can only do 3 mexes if you're doing solar because you drain your energy and now you're stalling. And now you're slowly building this stuff. Because yeah, each extractor takes 3 energy per second to extract metal. And after you build 3 mexes, you will drain all that. So typically you need to build the solar afterwards. And if you're going to do winds, you want to do 2 mexes, 2 winds, 3rd mex, 3rd and maybe 4th wind, depending. You want to have about 65 energy income to build your lab, your factory here. Vehicle labs take a little bit more, but generally 65 is still good for that too. That'll just drain a little bit of your resources as you build it. So, I mean, obviously it would be bad if you're out of energy, but that's typically not the case with that kind of opener that I was talking about. All right, so now you're building on some more winds. You're building an aircon. Let's see. Okay, you got 3 aircons queued up. I would say this is too much for sure. Aircons are not very efficient in terms of base building. I mean, they're efficient if your base is cluttered and it's hard to get places with your ground con, then it's okay to have an aircon. But this early on as an opener, they just take too long to build and they don't provide very much build power. So the green number here, I'm holding I to bring this up, by the way. The green number is the build time that it takes to build it. And that's divided by the build power of the things that are working on it. So this lab has 100 build power, commander has 300. So 400 build power, divide that by the 8,000 and that's how long it'll take. But yeah, it's 8,000 build time for only 60 build power. Whereas a ground con is, only 3,500 build time, and it's 80 or 85 for Cortex build power. So you get a lot more bang for your buck with these little guys over your aircons. Aircons are nice if you're trying to get places, if you're trying to be mobile with your build power. Or if you're trying to build like a stack of wind turbines in the back or something. So this is kind of fine to have for your aircon. But this is setting you back dramatically. And you definitely need more energy right now as well. So your commander should actually be making energy right now. So a lot of bar, regardless of what role you're playing. There's some scouts coming in. Regardless of what role you're playing, has very much to do with just looking at your resources, as well as everything else you're trying to do, right? Like with micro and moving your units and building stuff. But yeah, glancing at your resources and seeing what do I need to do with my money. And yeah, with your energy being so low, what you needed was wind turbines. And then if your energy is not low and you have metal to spend, then you want to boost as much as possible. So with your commander having 300 build power, that's a lot very early on. Like you don't have, like, you have your aircon that does 60, like, it's not much. So 300, your commanders is your main source of build power. So whatever they're working on is very important. So boosting, yeah, it's good, but if you don't have the energy to boost with, it's not great. Probably just a bit of a small misstep on your part, something you're probably getting used to as a new player. And yeah, it does take time. So I'm not trying to harp on that too hard, but it is very important to keep in mind that if you need energy, build energy. If you need metal, I mean, there's only so many mexes that you can build, so you want to limit how much you're building by how much metal do you have coming in. And then if you have a surplus of metal, that means you need more build power in general, more con turrets, more, air cons or ground cons or whatever, to help just assist building things faster. And so then it's more about what are you building? What is the key thing here? Early on that can be more economy focused, or it can be more, I need to get fighters out and maybe some scouts to look at your opponent, which is very important as the air player. But yeah, there is such a thing as you buy a T2 con or a T1 con from your guy over here. You get an air transport around to grab these mexes faster, and then you use that to build construction turrets and stuff like that. Depending on what you need at that moment. Some maps will be bigger mexes and you'll need this con turret faster, or maybe wind's higher so you're not spending as much metal on energy and things like that. But yeah, having a transport to move them around because they are quite slow is very nice. And then once you have con turrets already up, you can use the same transport, the same light transport, to move con turrets around. So you can actually, like say for example, you have a lot of starting metal still and plenty of energy. You can fly your con over here, build the con turret, your commander boosts the con turret, then you pick up your con, fly it over here, start working on these mexes, fly it back, build maybe another con turret, or maybe wind turbines or whatever. And then your placement of the con turret is very important as well. So the placement here is very close to the lab. This is very much what a lot of players will do. But what's going to be more efficient, or what's going to be better, is to put these in a location where they can assist more things. And what I mean by that is, this thing is only boosting the lab right now, where it could be boosting wind turbines, or it could be boosting converters or storage, or anything else. So what good players would typically do is they'll place a con turret, say within, you want it within range of the lab, so it can always assist the lab when necessary. But you can put it like somewhere like here, and that way it can flip-flop between doing fighters and helping your economy. And that would be like I'm trying to do like a 50-50 approach, like where I'm trying to do maybe 50% build power on economy and the other 50% is on fighters. And making that decision is very crucial. It's very difficult for an air player, but basically what it comes down to is gathering that information any means possible. And that means one of your first units you want to have out is a scout, because there isn't a lot of anti-air out early on, and it's a lot easier for it to slip through. And maybe around now you build like a second one or something to just like see what it can find. And at the very least, you want to know where the bases are, where the people are putting wind turbine stacks. Early, like if it's super early scouting, you won't get that much information on like all the wind turbines, but you will get information on, what players in what position, what faction they are, how soon are they moving their commander out, and information like that. It might not help your allies that much at this lower OS, but information like that can be crucial at higher OS. Just like figuring out like, okay, as a front player, like, if for dark green, for example, knowing exactly who they're up against might change what they're doing. Like they might be like, oh, this person, I know how they played, they're going to do this, I'm going to respond like this. And so that's just really helpful. Another thing you can do, or that you want to do, is just be aware in general. Just you want to see bombers coming at your teammates as soon as possible so you can respond with your fighters. And what that entails usually is making sure that there's enough radar coverage. Like, dark green, for example, has a radar. Where's the radar? Am I not seeing it? What? Somebody has a radar over here. I guess it's just the light green player has a radar here. So that's pretty good coverage. Bombers like to skirt the edge of the map, so that's like very... it could be better if dark green had one like here as well. Radars are not that expensive, so like, players should just like kind of slap them down, and just have contingency radar in case one gets taken out and things like that, because it does help against bombers. Now the blue player over here should have a radar, and they don't. So I would be hounding them about building a radar, because it can be very important. Bombers getting here, and then you finally see it, and then you finally respond with your fighters, can mean that this player's now dead. Or, this forward position's taken out or something. Like there's things that can certainly happen because of a lack of radar. Okay, so it looks like this player here got a radar. So that's good. You guys have good coverage now. But yeah, the radar very, very, very important just for your team to have so that you get that information. All right, so we're moving on to the transition into T2. I'm not sure if you bought this guy, but in general, you do want to buy the con because it slows them down significantly to build that. Like each of these cons is like 500, or I guess for a bot, it's only 470. But yeah, each of these cons is kind of a big deal, and it's slowing down this person's growth. So buying it is very, very crucial or very important, especially at higher level play. Because this player, like if these were paid for, these could be flying off the shelves. Like this should be already, like these players should already have their cons. And this light blue player should already have their mexes upgraded. And they just haven't. And part of that is just being lower OS kind of gaming, which is fine. But just to like point out the differences there. I'm not sure if you've given them... Okay, you did give them an air transport, which is great. That is something you absolutely want to do. And they're not that expensive, so like it's not a big deal to you. It's only 68 metal, so like, you know, pay for it or not, like just give them at least one to work with so they can scoot those guys around to help get those cons to their teammates faster. Okay, so you got your T2 con. You're upgrading mechs with it, which is good. I would try to, like, so 4 times the metal income from each of these metal nodes is a very, very big deal. Very big deal. 4 times, that's 400% increase. Even if it was just a 50% increase, it'd be kind of a important thing to do, but it's 400. So you want these ASAP, and what that means is you want to put more build power on it. You want to assist this guy as much as possible. You want to move him around so he's not taking so long to get to these mexes. So you want to have a transport for yourself to do that. Whoa, I'm not sure what you're doing with your commands, but that was some crazy sounds. But yeah, assist this guy as much as possible. You can even do things like turn off your lab. You know, it's not showing here, but there is a wait button. I forget what the normal key is. It might be like Y or something like that. I use custom keys, so I don't know what it is for you, but or you could just like cancel the repeat order of building the fighters. But either way, you're trying to spend on fighters as well as upgrade this, and build these converters, and build some wind turbines, and build some more nanos. It's just like a lot going on, and it's going to be more efficient to do one of these things at a time, especially when it's so very important, like upgrading these mexes. So what ground players should do when they get a T2 guy is maybe even, you know, they can produce some extra cons to just guard. And you can just guard with a right click, a simple right click. This that icon over the constructor right now is the guard command, and a constructor that's guarding another constructor will assist that thing indefinitely. You'll follow it around and build stuff with it. So you want to be doing that, especially with your commander sitting idle here. Your commander could certainly be assisting this stuff. And then, yeah, you want to maybe even grab these first, because you can upgrade the mexes near your con turrets as, you know, like extremely quickly because you have the con turrets there. So yeah, definitely prioritize these mexes, but also turn off your lab so that you can pour more of your metal income into the one thing. And you can actually do, I guess the other thing you can do, this is a little bit more advanced, but what you can do is reclaim your T1 lab. You know, you get that chunk of metal back. Let's see, how much is it? 860 metal for your air plants here. So you get that 860 and just pour it into these advanced metal extractors. And they do cost money, so they, you know, they take a lot longer to pay off than T1 extractors. But, you know, as soon as you pay, you know, the faster you get them up, the faster you pay them off, and the sooner you're actually making money from it. So I would, you know, unless there's immediate danger, I would say get rid of this lab and just upgrade your mexes so that you get them ASAP. And then the other important thing is, like, if you're spending a lot of build power and stuff on upgrading these mexes, and you know, wind dips down, or you don't have enough storage, or you know, you just don't have enough energy coming in to support all these upgraded mexes, because these These take 20 energy per second. So it does cost quite a bit more, and you're going to want to scale your your energy economy with it. So sometimes that means building more bot cons. Maybe that's air cons. Or just maybe more con turrets near things that are already building energy. So you should keep this guy on energy, for example. This guy building converters, you're not converting right now anyways, so like you're actually overbuilding converters. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Yeah, I would use any, any idle con, including the commander, just assist those mechs upgrades. Yeah, so let's talk about, let's talk about the energy first. So a lot of times players will build a fusion, at the T2 stage once they upgrade, say 4 or 5 mexes. And that can be really good, can be really strong in a lot of situations. Here, wind is strong enough. Like I think I was saying that earlier. Actually, I'm not sure if I said this earlier, but basically, wind turbines break even with fusions around 10 wind speed. Wind's kind of low at the moment, it's only around 6, but the average is 11. So wind turbines are technically better than fusions because of that. I'll give you some more numbers here, I guess, just to have in your head. But they wind turbines break even with APHIS around 12 wind speed. And then for advanced solars, they break even around 8. And for basic solars, they break even around 5 or 6 or so. Depending on what numbers you're adding to the equation, it can be a little bit higher because of energy costs and all that. So, but it's typically basically around 5 or 6. But okay, so you are building that fusion, which is fine. This is another big expensive thing. 4,500 metal is a lot. And so when you're greeding for this, you can do the same thing like I was talking about with the mexes. You can reclaim the air lab and put that metal into this so that you get this sooner. You have the build power for right now, it seems, or at least, yeah. You basically have plenty of build power to get that up faster. If you just had a little bit more metal, you could get that up sooner, and that would turn on your converters. And you could start actually making some reasonable metal here. Let's see, this 33, yeah, that's basically 33 extra metal income that you could be having, or you should be having once this goes online. I guess wind dipped down, so maybe not at the moment, but yeah, it's a lot of metal, or it's a lot of potential metal, given the converters. And yeah, you can actually scale wind here even further, but yeah, it's totally fine that you build a fusion as well, because it takes a long time to build up that much wind. You need quite a bit of build power. It's like, I forget exactly how many wind turbines, but it's almost 100 wind turbines, if not more, to equate to a fusion. And that depends on the wind speed, of course, too. So it's probably a little bit less than 100. It's probably something around 80, I want to say. But yeah, and that takes a long time to build all those wind turbines and a lot of space. And eventually you're going to need, as you continue scaling, it's of course better to just scale with fusions here, because you will run out of space. So, not everyone on this map can build wind turbines all day long, because you do need some of that space to do it, to continue doing it. All right. Anyways, you're building the T2 air lab now. Actually, before I get to all that, the converters. So, just to talk about the conversion stuff a bit here. So these are all off right now. When they are yellow, they are lit up. Yeah, like this. These are on now. But half of them are off. So you're actually not using a lot of these. And you might see the energy bar jumping up and down between the slider. And that's just because of how the system works. Basically, you get the energy first, and then it gets converted. Separately. So you'll see your energy go up, and then bounce back down to the slider, and you see that continuously. That doesn't mean that all of them are being used. It just means that you're getting that energy income before it gets converted. So this is just too many converters for how many wind turbines you have, which is not a big deal at this point. but earlier on it was kind of a big deal. And now you have all these T2 converters queued up, and this is just too much. Now, okay, so that's what I should definitely talk about. So things like this you want to pay attention to before it happens. And when you see it coming, you want to be able to, like, as the air player, like, I guess, like you like sort of should be zooming out a lot, and just paying attention to what's going on the map in the different lanes, like as a general sense. And when you see a problem, to maybe ping it for your allies, because it's easiest for you to pay attention than for like this player here to, like, you know, be battling this player all, you know, the entire game and then not know what's going on over here. So as the air player, it's sort of like you have a little bit more like, since you're zooming out anyways, you like sort of already should see stuff like that before some of your allies. And so pinging it and saying like, hey, like, this person needs assistance can be a lot of help. Or maybe you have a response of your own. If you're Cortex, you have Shuris available, and that helps a lot for defense. As Armada, you don't have that, but you do have, I mean, you did get a Cortex botcon early on, so you could have actually swapped out your air lab. So just like seeing like, okay, Brown is looking like maybe they're pushing with some tanks. I don't see like a ton of defense here, so maybe, you know, we're going to need some assistance there. Maybe ping your allies. Maybe you feel like, okay, I got a second before they actually get there. Let me just swap out my air labs real quick. Let's reclaim the Armada air lab and put down a Cortex air lab. I keep saying lab, but it's actually air plant. The plants that builds air units, I guess. But yeah, switching out, getting some Shuris, being like, okay, now I'm just going to stun these real quick. You know, and then your allies rush in, destroy them all. And all of a sudden, you know, the enemy just threw away all those tanks, and you guys got all the reclaim, and no damage was actually being dealt. Which would be a significant win for you guys. So something to keep in mind. I've even been in situations where I'm like, okay, you know, there's a lot of leaks here. Let me switch into bots really quick. Let me just produce some grunts and defend, you know, some of the backline players, and then go right back into air. You know, things like that can certainly help out. You know, just as long as somebody is dealing with it, right? Because yeah, it sucks for a couple grunts or a couple medium tanks or whatever it is to just get in the back of your base and just destroy everything. Especially with your layout, by the way. This is very explosive. You know, each of these converters explodes pretty big. If you hold X and spacebar, you can see the explosion radius. The red one is when it just dies. The flashy one is if it's on self-D. And then if you hold I and shift, you can see the damage that's dealt with it and the AoE. So on death, that's 660 damage within that first inner circle. And the self-D, I mean, just to mention it, you know, over 1,000 damage within a slightly larger radius. So you can set self-D and explode enemy units if necessary. But I guess the point I want to get to is just when these explode and they don't really have that many hit points, you know, they'll take out a chunk around it, and they'll chain with all these converters, and they'll chain all the wind, which will then probably chain anyway the converters down here, which then chains the wind turbines, which then chains the converters, which chains the wind turbines. So this is very, very explosive, just FYI. Same thing with, you know, things like the advanced converter, you know, 1,000 damage, bigger radius. You know, fusions too. You know, obviously, you know, fusions and aphises explode, but yeah, just things to keep in mind.
Commander,
so that you know, just I mean, I know that the space is tight, but you know, it's like you kind of want to space it out a little bit more if possible. Now on this map, I mean, your allies are really close together. You're in the back. It's kind of hard. You know, like basically units should not be getting to you anyway, so it's kind of fine what you're doing. I just thought I'd mention it. All right, so let's talk about like in terms of air numbers and scouting and what to do and figuring all that stuff out, because as the air player, you kind of rely heavily on information. And a lot of new air players don't know how to get that information, and they don't make, I guess, good choices, or I should actually say informed choices. And you want to get as much information to make a more informed choice, or the most informed choices as you can. So as the air player, that not only means like paying attention to what is going on the battlefield, maybe helping out with shurikens, or now that you're T2, you can do like abductors or stilettos. These guys have a stun. They're also transport. These guys bomb stun, which is kind of nice. And you know, these abductors are not very expensive, and they have a pretty hefty stun as well. But anyways, you want to get that information, and you want to do that by like once in a while, just like seeing it, like sending an air scout and just seeing, okay, of the opponents out here, how many of them have anti-air? You know, maybe try to get it deep enough to see the fighter wall and just see how many fighters there are. Now, luckily for you, someone has an advanced radar right here. So you actually have some extra vision, and you can actually see some of these air units, and that's very helpful. So you can kind of guess what the rest of the, you know, because players will typically patrol the entire side. So there's probably air units going all around here, right? So getting this will give you an idea of what the heck is out here as well, generally speaking. And so just looking at this can help you gauge how much fighters you need to have compared to them. You also know that because these are showing up on radar, that these are T1 fighters. And you can also tell by the speed that they're not bombers. There's some slower ones in here. Those are bombers? Okay, yeah, the slower ones are bombers. Whoops, wrong person. There we go. Okay, so just, you know, that's stuff to keep in mind. What was I just saying? I totally lost my train of thought. But yeah, getting information, like seeing this a little bit ahead of time would have been nice. Like, and if you zoom out a lot, you should see your air units getting shot down. And I think at this point, since you're not seeing it, you probably are losing quite a few fighters. And that's very, very painful, because these are, especially since a lot of these are T2 fighters, and you're just losing chunks of them. So pay attention to that as much as possible. I'm not sure. I mean, this is, I don't feel like this is necessarily, especially the Banshees. Banshees just don't build Banshees at this point in the game. It's too much metal for too little damage. So they're not, like, in terms of metal per hit points, like, it's really not, I mean, yeah, maybe they absorb a little bit more, but when it comes to the T2 phase, like, T2 anti-air was just going to take them out, like, in one shot anyways, so, like, the extra hit points isn't going to help you. And also, you don't want to stack them up, because all anti-air have, I mean, all the units technically have a little bit of splash, so you don't want to stack them up that closely, if possible. If you have a lot of them, you want to maybe make 2 lines, like I'll draw something like that so that they're a little bit more spread out. But yeah, looks like their fighters took out a lot of your gunships, and then you send your fighters to defend. Let's see, where are these guys going? Okay, they're trying to do what they can, but yeah, there's just a lot of fighters coming in here. Some reserves from Brown. And yeah, a lot of time that'll happen with gunships, and unfortunately there's a bombing now, and you don't have that many fighters. And yeah, there's a little bit of a blunder here because you have just so many gunships. Gunships are great defensively. They're actually not great defense, or
Commander.
Sorry, I think I mixed that up. They're not great offensively, but they're great defensively. So sending them in up here to attack, generally not good, because they do too little DPS and they'll get shot down by the fighters. Now, if you didn't lose those fighters to the anti-air in the middle here, you might have had enough to, like, pull something like that off if you had sent all your fighters, but at the same time, it's very risky, because if there's, you know, some strong anti-air ground stuff here, you can lose a lot of units for not much. So I don't typically, I wouldn't typically say to use gunships in the way that you did. And you're still trying them out. Yeah, I mean, it'd be good in this situation against stuff like the Tsar. but you're trying to send it forward and do some stuff. But now red has even more anti-air, and now they're just getting cleaned up here. So it's just a lot of costs that you're using on those gunships that are just dying. Instead, I would recommend the bombing. I mean, first of all, I'd recommend not losing your fighters here. I mean, I think that goes without saying, but you know, stuff happens, and you know, if that kind of thing happens, you need to, you know, realize what's going on and replenish that, and realize that, like, okay, if I do gunships right now offensively, or even the bombing run offensively, my opponent is going to just have more fighters, you know, because I lost a bunch of mine. The only way that it works out in your favor still is if your opponent is just really not having a good time with the economy and just doesn't have that many fighters despite you losing a whole bunch. Which isn't a situation you want to really put yourself in. You don't want to assume that your opponent is bad, unless you know that they're bad. Otherwise, you know, you guys are around similar OS. I mean, I guess not really. This guy's only a 6, but either way, OS isn't the whole story. You know, this person maybe lost a lot of games, you know, either because their allies, you know, failed them in some way, or because they weren't good before, but now they're a lot better. You know, so there's a lot of things to consider with lower OS players, because some of them can be quite good and they just get stuck in the lower OS because they continue to play lower OS players. So yeah, don't make an assumption about their OS, but also, you know, try to just gauge, you know, what do you need. And I think right now you're making the right move. You know, you lost a bunch of fighters, you lost all those gunships, so you're down on fighters, so now you're replenishing all the fighters. And yeah, anytime your allies get a forward position, like this out here, I mean, obviously you were doing stuff so I can understand not paying attention to this, but when possible, pay attention to any forward advance that your allies make, so that you can gauge, like, what is the anti-air situation there. And that, you know, just to help you get more information about what's going on. Because at this point in the game, a lot of fighters end up being T2. You know, players have been mixing in T1 fighters, so you do see some stuff on radar. There's actually a lot of bombers here, and a lot of gunships. But yeah, T2 fighters are stealthy, so they do not show up on radar, so it's just something to keep in mind. And yeah, just pay attention to where the anti-air is and try to make proper moves with that. Yeah, I think from your perspective, it's hard to gauge what the light brown player has in terms of economy or in terms of fighters in general. And you only see so many dots, so it's kind of hard to gauge what's going on. And yeah, seeing all the flak trucks that were in the middle here before, it's very difficult to, like, make an offensive play with air at this point when you're the only air player. So if you had an ally that was building air units as well, you can, you know, do things like you build fighters, your ally builds bombers, and you guys collectively make a strike, you know, or you know, bomb the enemy, which is really strong. It can, you know, there's enough fighters and bombers in the air that you can absorb a lot of fighters and bombers from, or fighters and anti-air from the ground from your opponents. Looks like there is a lot of gunships and bombers making a move. You decide to pursue, they pull back, but there's a lot of anti-air here. Yeah, there's just so many trucks and things destroying all their fighters. And this is, okay, so this was actually a huge mistake. Because what's even happening here? Your fighters go in here deep into enemy territory. They can't kill any ground stuff. You can only kill air stuff. And so even if you clean up the air stuff, you're just losing fighters to the anti-ground. So you're not really doing any economic damage. Potential damage to their fighters, but they can just pull back as the anti-ground chews them up. And then, yeah, the fighter, like, basically the move wasn't going to be able to do anything other than maybe trade fighters. And if you're trading fighters over their fighters and anti-ground, or anti-air from the ground, it's not a good trade for you, so you're just kind of losing out on that. Okay, economically speaking, let's go back to that for a minute. So we're looking at, I think you've had these fusions for a minute. and you've just kind of stopped to replenish your fighters, which is fine. You know, that's totally fine to do. Too many converters again. Like, basically, actually, none of your converters are being used right now. Maybe once in a great while. But I think that more or less has to do with one of your allies maybe overflowing a little bit. Then all of a sudden you get a little extra pip and then they turn on. Or maybe when, you know, it gets higher and then they turn on a little bit. T2 converters are more efficient, but they do take time to pay off. So, you know, you'll see these turning on and off before you see the T1 stuff turn on and off, just FYI, in case you don't know that. But yeah, it's hard to gauge, like, okay, you know, does your opponent have more economy or not? You just don't know. You know, and that's primarily because there's just so much air from the ground that you can't really do much in terms of scouting. You can't do much in terms of scouting with fighters, and you haven't had the opportunity to go with bombers, so you're kind of in the dark here. But you can maybe gauge just how fast you see you know, like Brown's air units replenish on this patrol pattern. You know, because it seems like they're just constantly adding to it, right? That's part of their queue. And so you can kind of gauge where your economy is compared to theirs by how fast you're able to replenish compared to them. Now, of course, this can be misleading because you don't see T2 fighters. As it so happens, these are all T1 fighters, so kind of can gauge. They're just finally now producing some T2 fighters, it looks like. But yeah, just, you know, just try to think about like all those different, like what could give them more or less, and try to figure out like, okay, you know, do I need to keep adding fighters? Can I maybe greed for some more economy? You add on a fifth thing. Oh, there's a nuke that went off. Unfortunate. I'm not sure what was there. It's probably just some units, given that this was not really taken before, or retaken, I should say. But yeah, your team's kind of in a situation. So if we split the map in half, you know, typically it's like this, or I guess, I don't know, something like this. And your team is missing all this stuff here, while their team has it all and has had it all for quite a while. So, you know, the longer that goes on, the rougher shape that your team is in. And so it's kind of a losing battle if your teammates are unable to retake it. But I don't know. I mean, I would say that the Hail Mary, you know, potential here is if one of your allies went air, they could potentially do something. You know, like, say, like you build a bunch of fighters, they build a bunch of bombers, and then you guys collectively, you know, run in there. And you take care of the enemy air, you absorb some fire, and, you know, hopefully there's just enough bombers to still get through. As long as you're, like, the units are split up enough, they can basically always get through. Like, there isn't, like... yeah, I mean, I would even say that there's a certain points where you can continue adding on anti-air, like, ground units, and at a certain points, like, bombers and fighters will just overwhelm it no matter what. Because you'll have things like, you know, 2 screamers that are hitting the same bomber. They'll, like, you know, there'll be a lot of waste shots at some point because they're, you know, it's not smart targeting. They'll just shoot whatever they, you know, whatever they see with the priority of, I'm pretty sure they prioritize, like, things prioritize bombers, but in terms of overkill, they don't prioritize anything. So you can overkill stuff. So, you know, building, you know, 2 screamers to take out a bomber is the same as having a dozen screamers, you know, because they'll still shoot the same bomber and kill it. So, you know, there is diminishing returns, I guess is my point when it comes to, you know, ground anti-air. So you can overwhelm it with bombers. Just have enough bombers, have them spread out, and get through. But yeah, that is something to practice. That's something that's a little bit tricky to pull off. I'm going to speed up here. So I think I've basically hit a lot of the main points here. If you do find time, continue to scale your fusions. You're scaling your converters, so that's not... You're not converting like anymore, you're just spending money on converters. Just FYI. If I were you, I would feel pretty comfortable with this many fighters. And I'd maybe spend like some of the build power building another fusion. Like maybe building 1 or 2 over here, or like, you know, slowly building up a stack there. And then just having a lot of your consorts out of range from that position so that they're mostly helping this stuff. While these will, you know, assuming that they're not told to assist the lab, they'll assist, you know, they'll bounce off of the fighter production, go over to the fusions. And then that way you'll have, you know, some working on the fusions and some working on the labs until it's done, and then they'll automatically switch back to the labs. But yeah, scaling is good. And yeah, honestly, like, you know, this is deep enough into this game that scaling becomes everything. You know, like the person that scaled the like better is gonna fare better. Like, I guess to put it this way, like, you know, like a team that prioritizes scaling, like there's, you know, like a team that'll prioritize scaling and one that'll prioritize units, right? And the team with the units will maybe have push potential, push stuff off. Like maybe that's the red team. Like they've pushed you guys off of this territory as a team. And so maybe you guys have better scaling. But that means that you guys need to like either turn on that scaling because you haven't, and then, you know, make up for the fact that you weren't maybe making as many units for a while, and just like produce like a huge chunk of units and then go as a collective. Or maybe you guys can you know, scale to such a proportion that all of a sudden 1 or 2 of you can just make massive amounts of units, including T3 or T2 or T1, you know, just like everything. Just send them everything. And it looks like a lot of your teammates are, well, some of them are just porked up. I mean, I guess, you know, basilicas are not really pork. So this is good. This is a way to at least hit your opponent, or their opponent, or I guess the other team. I'm trying to look at where's the radius for these. Okay. Okay, yeah, out here. So yeah, this can hit a lot. These should actually be targeting the bases. They're trying to target a bubble. I mean, basilicas, I mean, it's hard to take down a bubble with basilicas or with LLRPCs. You might want to, like, if I was this player, I would be targeting things that don't have a bubble as much as possible. Because, yeah, it's not really doing that much just hitting the bubble like that. Okay, so that's what they did. Okay, one of their players went bombers. So yeah, now you're up against 2 players, so now it's like, oh shit, I just need a lot of fighters. Ooh, okay. So, yeah, that's tricky. Okay, so your fighters are coming in this way, their fighters are coming in this way, and then you pull back your chunk of fighters over here backwards. Which, I'd say absolutely not ideal. Because, like, if they were ahead of the enemy fighters and not really taking damage, pulling them back and then, like, circling around might be okay. But as it happened, you did that pullback while being in range, I believe. And what that means is a lot of them are getting shot in the back, and they can't shoot backwards, so they can only shoot forwards. So running away while you're in range just means you're just taking extra damage. So a lot of those fighters are just dying without doing much, unfortunately. So there's a lot of brown fighters still alive, and a lot of yours are dead. And the same thing, these are pulling back this way. Sorry, I meant to pause. Okay, wrong button. I apologize. But there was the same thing going on there where you were like your fighters were pulling back this way. I mean, it might have been just the AI, like, okay, I'm going to go this way and then circle around to fight. But just as it was, yeah, they're just all getting shot in the back. And yeah, so a lot of your fighters lost their lives today. A lot of good pilots. And then yeah, you still gotta deal with the air. So like this is basically like going against 2 players like that. That'll basically always get through. Just tons and tons of bombers, tons and tons of fighters, and then there's just not enough things to shoot them all down because of there's no smart targeting. So a lot of overkilling, a lot of shots. Like a lot of your fighters hitting one fighter, a lot of their fighters hitting one fighter, and then all of a sudden, nothing's really dying, and the bombers get super far in and bomb something. So kind of unfortunate, but that's just kind of how it goes. And I don't think any of your teammates are really in a position to help you on air. Maybe this player probably could. Not everybody needs to go T3, by the way. Yeah, I mean, it seems like the thing here in this game is like, okay, you've got a player going long-range plasma cannons, which haven't done too much because of shields. And then you've got, a lot of players doing spam. Granted, green lost a lot of stuff here, so it kind of makes sense for them to do spam. But not everyone needs to do spam or T3. You can do T2. Like things like, like these mammoths are helping out. Like it's not, it's not nothing. Now again, something like a jug, like mammoths don't really do that much damage, but they can absorb a lot of damage. They're absorbing all these shots from the juggernauts, so it's kind of nice to have. Yeah, I see you sending those gunships in, which is nice because they provide flanking damage. I don't know if you even know about flanking damage, but basically when you attack something and that becomes like the fronts of the attack, and so if you have something attacking it from behind that position, like 180 degrees from where it first got shot, it'll take an extra 100% damage. So it'll take 2 times damage being shot in the back. And that ring that people think about with flanking, because there's a visual ring that you can turn on in settings. It's actually a sphere, so things hitting from the air, like counts it like basically if something hit it directly from on top, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, something hitting it from the ground will do 200% damage, like no matter what. So having something hit it from the air is very helpful to just help with the flanking damage, essentially. But yeah, more bombers come in, more, you only got so many fighters at this point. Yeah, part of this might be like, okay, so you could have potentially outscaled your opponent dramatically, because we're in this lower level lobby. Like if you had scaled harder during that period where you had a lot of fighters, you could potentially have a lot more income to be able to do a lot more things. As it so happens, you have a lot of metal anyways, so you should actually just be adding on more con turrets. Yeah, because stuff coming out of these air labs can actually be like almost instantaneous. Just like boom, 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 boom. So you can actually put a lot of con turrets on one air lab. But yeah, eventually, a second air lab. I mean, you could turn this guy into a second C2 air lab. Eventually, I say that with an asterisk because I see a lot of new players end up building too many air labs too early instead of more con turrets. And these air labs, they're $3,000. So, potentially if you had 3, that's, $6,000 being just sitting there in the labs when they could have just been more construction turrets, essentially. But yeah, this game's pretty much over. I hope you learned a thing or two here. Hopefully I didn't drag on too hard with every little detail. But yeah, I wanted to slow this one down a little bit, in part because I'm quite tired today, but also in part to just give a more detailed overview of air. So hopefully anyone that's watching will get a good understanding of how to play air. Leave some remarks in the comments if you want. If you are SirupyKoala, feel free to respond in that thread where it's a little bit more private. We can, feel free to ask questions and whatnot. I know I've kind of dragged on this video quite a bit, and I've tried to harp on things a lot, but also try not to, or I've tried to explain things in detail, but not harp on them too much, is what I mean. So let me know if you have any questions. And I'm just going to speed this game up so we can see the ending here. More bombers. You have a lot of fighters though, so I mean, you cleaned it up this time. That's nice. I mean, there wasn't as many. They didn't wait long enough, so they kind of had just not enough. There wasn't enough overkilling shots happening for the bombers to get through. And at the same time, they were in this position where there are some bird shots here. I think I kept saying screamers earlier when I meant the flak cannons. What am I even talking about? Where's the nope, that's trying to look here real quick. What is the Armada Arbalist? Okay, so I wasn't talking about Mercury or Screamer. I was actually talking about Arbalist and Birdshot for flex. I mean, not that it matters, but either way, it's overkill killing stuff. Yeah, this match is basically over. Oh yeah, don't do things like this. Like when you put anti-air down, you want to scatter them. You don't want to put them all together because they'll absolutely shoot at the same thing. And this is 5 screamers that don't shoot very quickly, all attacking the same thing. So basically you might need 1 or 2 to take out an air unit depending on what it is. Like if a fighter flies over, all 5 of these will fire. It'll take only 1 of these shots to kill it. So it's just a big waste in terms of DPS. Same thing with the bird shots and arbalists, or even T1 stuff. You want to spread it out as much as you can. Same thing with the fighters. You want to spread those out so that you don't. So that you don't. A lot of anti-air have a sizable AOE, so you want to avoid that. You want to avoid clumping up for that reason, but also so that they're not overshooting something or overkilling something, over damaging. I guess. More fighters and more bombers coming in. You do have an overwhelming force, but unfortunately you guys are pushed back so far that it's like hard to be over everything. Also, I should probably mention that AoE is indiscriminate. They will... like anti-air ground stuff will kill your fighters if it's next to an enemy fighter. Just keep that in mind as well. But yeah, it's like your team has taken all the damage, their team hasn't, so this is just kind of dragging on and on. And also, at this lower level, a lot of players play very defensively, just try not to die, try not to make a wrong move. And I guess to anyone out there playing these forward positions, or I guess front positions, or even back positions, don't be afraid to use your units, especially when you see what's there. Like if for example, those fighters and bombers just went over here. You can take a look at what they actually have here. You see all defenses, right? Like, okay. And honestly, like, this seems scary, but it's actually not that much. Slot pit bulls, spam can just work that down. Long range plasma cannons, their shots take time to connect, and aren't likely to do too much damage. What the thing is that you want to actually pay attention to is this ramp here. It's kind of narrow, so there's this wall here, and then plus all these things here is maybe too much, so maybe not go there. But I guess my point is this pink player could see that this player is very defensive, doesn't really have any units there, and could take all these units and just go over here and say, haha, you built defenses, but I'm just gonna go somewhere else. Oof, mammoths for the charge. I guess I don't know what the LRPCs are targeting. This player needs more energy, by the way. They need more storages to actually use these, because these do take a lot of energy. That's was it 500? 5,000 energy per shot. You're storing up only a maximum of 21,000 or 21,000, so that's I guess it's some, but it's you're also thinking about converting and all that, so maybe I don't know. I'm just seeing these unpowered quite often, so these are actually shooting a lot slower than they could be. But yeah, storage so that you can actually bank up the money to fire these more is good. But yeah, they actually, yeah, we're able to push through here. I mean, I suppose at this stage with T3, it's like, yeah, you can just get through here. I forget that it's already like an hour into this game. I don't usually see matches last this long. But yeah, this much T3 and that many mammoths can certainly push through that position, even with some titans coming up here. I guess my point is this kind of stuff could have happened sooner. You know, some of these players could have pressured down here a lot more. And yeah, the game could have potentially been over a lot sooner because of things like that.
Commander died.
Just FYI. Okay, so you built a nuke. Okay, I mean, you know, for defensive purposes, that's not a bad idea. I mean, at this point, you can kind of, especially on this map, you can assume that all the bases are just going to be covered with anti-air, or I'm sorry, anti-nuke. But yeah, for forward positions such as, you know, this could be nuked.
Commander has fallen.
So yeah,
Commander
basically
died.
over. Just gotta wait for the mammoths to get there. You know what? I think this is honestly taking kind of a long time, so I'm gonna call it. Whoops. That's one of my buttons getting all funny. Oh, I was hitting the wrong button. That's why. My apologies. All right. Anyways, I'm gonna just turn off the sounds. There we go. Okay. My apologies. Wrong buttons again. But yeah, I am Zeteo. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys have learned something, and leave some comments if you guys got some questions. Let me know. Thanks for watching.